like I don't know nobody.
What up, world? What up, world? It's Leo from the Go. This is the BullPen. Shout out Mike Jacks. Mike Jacks on the ones and twos. We got some special guests in the building. Guestesses. So I guess we'll go around the table, and I want y'all to kind of like introduce yourselves and, you know, some things that you guys do, some of them. So I know everybody's like, you know, slash, you know, you guys are skilled. It's the age of the Renaissance man. So let's go with you, Shannon.
What's up, everybody? This is Shannon Waldron, man, founder of Urban Fetes. I'm a nightlife connoisseur, event curator, brand builder out of Chicago. On my way to hopefully going global. Stay tuned.
All right. Hustle.
Hustle Simmons from Chicago. Artist manager, curator, multimedia personality, a bunch of stuff. I'm boring.
He's lying. But Dave.
Yeah, I'm David Drake. I'm a music writer and a critic. I write for, I don't know, all the music publications that everyone.
Now drop some names. Now we dropping names. Drop some
I
names.
write for Rolling Stone, Complex, Pitchfork, Fader. Yeah, I've written for the Chicago Tribune. Yeah.
I wish we still had Mike still alive. We could drop bombs for every publication. Like it'd be like the oh, he just did it. It was a little late, man. Actually, yeah, I can still hear it. But and so, you know, I wanted to because I know South by coming up, so I wanted to kind of like compose this panel because I think a lot of artists go down to South by and they think it's one thing and it ended up being another. And they think they're ready and they end up not being, you know. So that was the essential basis for the show. However, during like some conversations with a couple people, you Drake, you David, and then recently this article with Andrew Barber, and he's kind of giving his thoughts on the Who was that? Was that Red Bull? Was that Red Bull Sound Select?
I'm not sure with the publication. Something.
Yeah, that's Red Bulletin. So he did an article with them, and he's talking about South by, and he's talking about how it kind of got corporate, and now it's just really trying to be into the big events and getting to there and getting looks, opposed to finding the new up and coming talent and opposed to now. I know we got some political connection here because, you know, we got, you know, two guys in here with popping shows. We're gonna get into that too. But what are you guys' thoughts on that? Does he have merit? Because the big quote is, you know, if not popping in your own city, essentially stay home. So what's your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I would say definitely and this industry itself there's no shortcuts. So I mean, if you're expecting to just go down to Austin and get on, like, you know, you're gonna be in for a rude awakening. So definitely staying at home, working at home, doing shows at home, building a fan base at home before taking your talents on the road is something I would strongly suggest for sure. Like I think a lot of people get this false perception that they can just go to Austin and perform, get on as many shows or stages as they can, and then walk out with a record deal and millions of fans, and it just doesn't work like that. So definitely stay on your grind, practice, do whatever it is you got to do, work on your music, and then, you know, once you feel like you're up to that par, like, you can go ahead and take it.
And another thing I want to kind of like add, so if, like, say for instance, let's say this is true, like South by has fell down, like, wouldn't South by still be like number 2? Like, who comes after South by? So if they even dropped, they would kind of like drop on themselves essentially. Like, who would be the, you know what I'm saying? So
like the next festival.
Yeah, the next festival.
Well, I mean, A3C for hip hop is dope, but even A3C is getting corporate. Like, at the end of the day, it's a lot of artists that come down to South by that's popping in their city and not popping at South by. So it doesn't. I don't think it all the way matters if you popping at home or if you popping it not. It's about how you move. I mean, I remember 3 years ago, a friend of mine who's performing on my show, John Connor, He came down there unsigned from Flint, Michigan. No one really knew who he was, but he brought 50 people with him, and he had everybody dressed in army fatigue. He had posters and stuff like that, and he did maybe 4 shows, 5 shows. Now he signed to Dr. Dre. Now he's on Dre's album. You know what I'm saying? You have people like LEP, who was popping in Chicago, but came down to South by Southwest, fairly unknown, put posters up, moved through the streets, then they got their buzz, you know. But then you have artists that popping in Chicago or popping in their respective city who come down there and don't know how to promote themselves. You know what I'm saying? You should be able to pop in your city, you know, after a while if you put in your work. So with social media, anything that's popping, corporations are going to get on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I remember Winter Music Conference. That people, hip hop acts didn't go there. Now Winter Music Conference is huge. You know, South by, corporations come in. A3C, corporations come in. I mean, you got OVO Fest, corporations come in. Anything that's gonna have a bunch of people, these corporations want those impressions, so they're gonna put their money. So, but it's up to the artist and his team to know how to operate and how to move. Like you had Kodak Black, who had A3C on lock. I didn't know who this kid was. He was in the streets. It was cars trying to come down. I forgot Edgewood, and he had people in the streets knocking on the window. Kodak Black CD. And you're like, yo, who is this kid? Like, who is this kid? But then you turn around right after that, he's on Fader. You know what I'm saying? So you have to know how to move and how to promote yourself to do the right shows. Because I mean, quite honestly, Shannon's show, my show, we're not a technically official showcase or have big brands behind us, but our lineups and our shows crack harder than some of these people who put thousands of dollars behind it. It's all about knowing who your fans are and knowing, you know, how to market yourself. So I think, you know, Andrew has make some points, but it's no clear cut way to make it at South by. It's a dice. You rolling the dice, and it's just how you feel when you go down there.
Okay. What's your thoughts?
From my perspective, I mean, I think that one of the problems with the way that South by Southwest works for like a press person is that because there are so many already signed artists performing there, and that those people have expensive publicists who are hitting up all of the major publications, that most of the people in the press, unless they're especially adventurous or unless they know like how to, you know, find other kinds of artists that aren't signed, are going to end up going to the most buzzed about. If they're unsigned, it's going to be the guys that are already basically on their way to a deal because they've got so much buzz online that it doesn't matter whether or not they even show up at South by Southwest, they're going to end up with a deal. Or they're going to end up at like going to see Young Thug or whoever. I mean, or one of the huge shows like the Kanye, I don't know, he's probably not doing it this year, but you know, one of those shows where a superstar is performing to a massive stadium. It's like, I feel like it's hard to get people's attention if you're an up-and-coming artist right now for a huge number of different reasons. And South by Southwest is like as bad as the internet in terms of like being the signal in the noise.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
If you're throwing like a good show where you're like, you've picked out like particular talent that other people aren't, and you can make it a good party and you can attract the right people, then I mean I imagine that it's doable. I'm not like trying to dismiss the idea of it altogether. Just my experience has been in the press. The press tends to chase what it knows, and what it knows is what everyone else is talking about. It can be very, very. A lot of people that do the job I do, I mean, you're nonstop bombarded with music and with publicists, and you basically reach for the stuff that your friends on Twitter are talking about.
That makes sense.
So I'm not defending that. I'm just saying that's the way that most writers are working. Which is maybe cynical, but I think it's true.
I think South by do a disservice, not the actual South by committee. I think they do themselves a disservice by welcoming the huge events, the huge brands because of the money, but shunning or shutting down the smaller acts. I mean, I can run down a list of artists that I had on my show that was fairly unknown, and then now they some of the biggest, you know, acts. And you know, even when it comes to the press, like I think one thing that always helped me, I've always wrapped my arms around the little blogs. Any blog that comes show my show love, I wrap my arms around them and show them love. Like, yo, thank you. I don't care if your blog ain't popping, because if they want it bad enough, a lot of them work their way up to the complex or work their way up to the Pigeons and Plains or whatever. But yeah, it just, you know, it kind of sucks for that artist who saved his money and, you know, scraped and put stuff together, come down there and he has a show at 10:30 and no one's there because Kanye is doing The Throne with Jay, and it's just like, really? Do you really need that? But Samsung, you know, I had Samsung turn me down. I went to Samsung to sponsor my show. I think I need like 10,000. They said no. I was like, I only want 10,000. I had a dope lineup, and they was like, yeah, we about to do this special show. We can't really talk about it. Then the dude whispered like Kanye and Jay. I'm like, what? They were like, yeah, you gotta have a Samsung phone to get in the show. I'm like, so I can't get $10,000 for like this dope lineup of all these dope artists, but y'all about to spend like over $1 million to take the Throne set that y'all was doing in major stadiums, redesign it for Austin Music Hall, which is like the Metro, and have Kanye West there. Like, how does that benefit Kanye West? And they was just like, we just want to sell some Samsung phones. I was like, church.
Yeah, at least he's honest.
Yeah,
and I was there that year because I remember.
Shout out to my man. He got fired, but shout out to my man.
You should have done your show.
Yeah,
that was it.
No, because I remember that year, and it was because I had went to they had a good music showcase.
Yeah, it was at the same time.
Yeah,
Kendrick had the iTunes show, the TDE show that was crazy.
Yeah, I think he had that earlier that day or something like that. But so I remember they was closing out the show, and everybody was still standing there for a good 15, 30 minutes because they thought, like, you know, Ye was in town. Like, oh, he got to show up to his showcase.
Yeah,
that didn't happen.
It wasn't. It was the Hollywood hold. It was the Hollywood hold. King Louis show. Big John and Shy High the Prince.
Yep. Okay, so another thing that I want to touch on was his whole comment, like, if you're not popping in the city, kind of like stay home. Do you still have to pop in your city first? Is that still a rule of thumb?
And again, like Dave and Hustle, they brought up some good points. I mean, it does provide somewhat of a disservice, but honestly, the way I look at it is, and I would tell, if I was managing an artist, I'd tell them, listen, if you don't have anything else lined up, if you have the budget to bring yourself down there, I would definitely encourage it. Only because there are some networking opportunities there. You never know who you may bump into in the streets, and now you're getting physically in front of folks instead of doing the cold calls or the emails or in the DMs or whatever. So I would definitely, I wouldn't say just stay home. Obviously, like, staying home is not going to get you any further in your career than doing that. So, but I would definitely weigh it out, see where you're at, you know, obviously see where your finances are, because, I mean, it isn't cheap. And then if it makes sense to go down there, if you're going to hit the streets and get out there and network and do a couple shows, I would definitely encourage it.
What's your thoughts on the whole buzzing in the city portion of that? You still think that's a necessity?
Well, no, because again, there is no perfect way of doing it or making it. So I would say it's a bonus. It would help you if you're performing down at South by, if some folks know you, because there is a large presence of Chicago folks that come down to South by. So if you're known, if you got a little buzz out there, and some of the folks that are down there just to witness the South by experience are following you, I think it'll just be a good look. It'll help you out on your performances. But with it being like, you know, necessity, yay and nay, because again, you can, as Hustle mentioned, you can be popping in other markets and in other areas and still have a good South by experience without really having a strong buzz in your own city.
I think it also depends on the kind of artist you are. Like, certain artists, I mean, what people look for maybe 3 or 4 years ago, you didn't have to have that buzz at all. You needed to get like the right kind of internet buzz. But then, like, I feel like basically after the drill thing happened here, really, people started looking way more heavily at metrics and like, do you have these listens and these views, and you have like comments from obsessed fans, and so then it like swung back the other direction, where now it almost feels like you have to have some sort of analytics to get like if a major is looking, but I think that that'll start to. It's gotten so ridiculous that I think now everybody has a buzz. Like there hasn't been an artist who's popped that hasn't had that.
Yeah.
So I think at a certain point it's going to swing back the other way where people start looking at like the A&Rs or the writers or whoever is chasing these artists is going to start again orienting more towards like how unique an artist is and less. I mean, nobody should be really chasing those kinds of metrics. That's not like. That's not good. You end up chasing the audience, then you're gonna lose. You're not.
And it's other things about South by that you learn. Like I've sent my artists down there who didn't really have shows just to take it all in. You know, you can go to a show and see someone perform, and you know they do something on stage that's like, oh, I didn't think of that. You know what I'm saying? So I tell artists like, yo, this is your competition. These are the people that you pretty much the music industry, especially hip hop. It's like I always say, it's like WWE Royal Rumble. They all in this one ring, and they all trying to throw each other, out of it. So you have someone like Designer, would he have all these shows if Kanye didn't co-sign him? Would he have all those shows just based off Panda? Panda's not a new record. It's been out for a nice while, you have people like Fetty Wap. Fetty Wap didn't go to South by and do all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you go to South by and you take from it what you take from it. It depends on the artist, because people think that you should just go to South by just to go rap. What about meeting those writers? What about meeting fellow producers? I remember my first year at South by, I seen Mos Def walking down the street. And I was just like, yo, why is Mos Def just walking down the street on 6th Street at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Like, I was like, yo, this is like trip. This back when there wasn't that many hip hop shows. But, you get what you put out. As far as the analytics, all that stuff come from the labels not having the money to develop these artists. I go to labels have meetings all the time with my artists or working with other artists, and they say, what your numbers looking like, because they want a for sure. They want to say, all right, we're gonna give you this money and you can go. They always ask like, oh man, I got one artist, he has he just hit like 3 million plays on SoundCloud, and he's getting a nice buzz. But then I have a female artist who just hit 30 million plays on SoundCloud. But he's toured, he's done more shows, he has brands behind him. She hasn't. You know what I'm saying? She has more, followers because, she's popping online and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But and I feel he's probably putting in more work as far as like on the stages, putting out music and stuff. But if I took them both into a label, she would get the deal first. You know what I'm saying? Just off the strength, they like, oh, you have 30 million plays, you have 500,000 followers. So the analytics, this game is it's crazy. So that's why I say it depends on the artist.
Well, I feel like anything online is more so suited for women. Just to me, this is my perspective. Like anything online is more so it's suited for women, and I kind of feel like they kind of make the social media rules, and then like, man, if we can get away with it, we just follow right behind them.
No, we just creeps, and we just want to look at booty all day. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just what it is. Like,
really that simple.
But a lot of them chicks broke. I'm keeping 100.
No comment.
Yeah.
A lot of them chicks with all them followers and stuff, like they got them bodies, but they bartenders. I mean, let's keep it 100.
Yeah, but if social
women have always driven sales in the industry. Women have always driven sales.
Yeah.
I don't even know who your girl is. I hope I'm not. I hope I like that picture.
You're talking about crossover though. Like for a long time, women have driven also just album sales.
Yeah,
and that's. I mean, that's something that a lot of artists I think don't even think about, is that they have large. If they want to succeed, they should have a female audience, and they should consider that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I still have like mixed feelings about if you have the money to go down to South by Southwest, but that's all the money you have, I wouldn't do it. Like I feel like the internet has made it so it's easier for people to reach out to you. I do think there's something worthwhile in going and seeing what there is down there though. Like I do think that as an experience to see up close, like it is worthwhile in that sense to perform for like that kind of audience's interest. To see the industry up close is valuable probably. Exactly. But at the same time, I think the expense having loyal fans, and this isn't necessarily metrics. Like metrics don't necessarily reflect how loyal your fan base is. There can be, I don't know if designer's gonna have loyal fans a year from now, but there are artists that like. I just this is totally unrelated to rap music, but there's a rock band that I gotten real into called the 1975. Yeah. He follows me on Twitter. Yeah. And I read an interview with them where the guy talks about like when they first started, they had 200 fans max, but the fans were like super, super hardcore. Mm-hmm. They would get like neck tattoos of the band like on there. Like it was, and it's that kind of energy I feel like is actually more translatable to long-term success when you have that devoted fan base, and that's more valuable than like the people in the press. If you can get that, if you're connecting on that level, all you have to do is be consistent, and eventually these people in the press should come to you if they're doing their jobs.
Mm-hmm. That's funny he said that, because when I do panels, I always say, if hip hop artists really studied rock bands, they would be more successful. Because if you look at it, say you go to a Rolling Stones concert, so the Rolling Stones, they in what, they 60s, maybe 70s, probably 60s,
zombies.
Yeah. So you figure. If you go to their concert, you have the other 60-year-olds who's been their fans all their lives. Then them 60-year-olds got their 40-year-old kids who's been fans because they listened to it growing up. Them 40-year-olds got their 20-year-old kids who's in college smoking weed listening to it. But they remember those bands that were in a hole-in-the-wall club on the north side of Chicago playing. Sometimes in hip-hop, we put these artists out there with Bentleys and stuff, and they don't relate with their fans. So I always tell people, if you're an artist, you start off by first getting the people in your house to come to your show. Get your parents, get your brother, sister. From there, you get your neighbors. Then you get your block. Once you take your block, you get the neighboring blocks in your neighborhood.
And make sure you're good enough that they want to come.
Exactly.
You're not like, please come and support me. It's like, you're so good that they want to support you.
Yeah, like you, they should automatically want to come because they rock with you, but you should also be good. And if you start doing that, then you will start building this fan base. You know what I'm saying? That continue to grow. It's the same way of how we do shows. You know what I'm saying? How he writes. You always start off with those few people that tweet your stuff or support your stuff. That's your army right there. You build with them and you keep giving them good product. They, off word of mouth. I don't print flyers for my events. I don't do stuff like that. But it's been, word of mouth. His events have jumped leaps and bounds within the last 2 years based off the quality of the product that he's putting out. And I think a lot of times, it's not always. Everybody think it's like it's all about numbers and stuff like that. Dude, you could start off with, my first couple of shows I was doing, I would have like 30 people there, But those 30 people, I kept in contact with. So then they rocked with me, but I kept giving out good product. So then they went out and got me 30 more fans. So now I can sell out stuff. So when it comes to South by, it's your fans. It's certain people who have fans who would come to South by just to see that artist. Like, I've seen it. Like, it's like, wait, you came to South by to see who? They come to your city in a couple months. They don't care. You know what I'm saying? So it's like people focus on South by so much, and they don't think about CMJ. They don't think about A3C. They don't even think about just like, telling artists like, yo, be someplace for Grammy weekend or, award show weekend. Like, everybody always focus on South by. Like, people think South by is like this kind of like you go there and you can become a star. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why I tell artists, like, don't go to South by if you're not going to be consistent and follow up after South by. You could come do 1 million shows. OG Macko did almost 30 shows last year. His voice went out. He did 2 of mine. So, but as soon as South by was over, he went right back on the road. He dropped 4 projects before South by, dropped a couple more after that, and he kept going. Too many artists just think South by, and then they go down there, and then you don't hear from them no more. They do a show, you like, man, whatever happened to that kid that gave me that CD? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not even all about passing out CDs anymore. So
I think it might be better to think of South by, if you're an artist, as a place to learn about to see the industry itself, rather than think of it as a place where you're going to get discovered.
Exactly.
That it's more about what you observe than it is an experience than it is about, like, I wouldn't go there. I don't think that's the first way you're gonna get. That's just my opinion.
But in media, like I got quite like. So what do you guys go for? Like, all right, when you're going down there to look for artists, are you looking for? I think you said it earlier, like what your followers are saying. Are you going for the big show? They got the artists that like Fdr or that everybody's talking about, or like what attracts you to certain artists and certain shows?
Usually, I would say it's just artists that I haven't seen before. Would be most. I mean, I've only been 2 times. Once was 2012, which was great. Once was last year, which was rainy and muddy and not good.
Yeah. I didn't leave Chicago for this.
But yeah, but when I went, the most interesting shows were the ones where it was someone that I hadn't seen before. I think in 2012 I saw Kevin Gates at like the Dirty Glove show, and that was kind of cool to see. And he was there with like, I think Louis was on before him or something, and it was cool to see what they were like live, because you can see how far along they are and what the connection with the audience is like. But I don't know that I'm necessarily typical of. So I don't even know that. I think lots of writers that are going down there, they have to create stories that people want to click on, and I don't think that doing the job of a good journalist necessarily leads to those stories.
Yeah.
Like, it's really hard, I think, right now to be a music writer who's covering South by Southwest. I know a lot of music writers who don't do it. I'm not doing it this year just because the incentive, most places don't like live show coverage writing. Last year I covered Chance's show that he did it with, and then Kevin Gates was there again. And that was like an interesting show because he did some new music, and Complex let me cover that at the time. But even then, that story didn't do the kinds of traffic that I don't think it's not. Most publications don't really run live show reviews anymore.
It seems as if, I mean, just to interject, it just seems as if the writers are all writing the same thing. So it's kind of hard to be a standout writer when I know when something's popping at a festival because there'll be like the same article from like different sources, and it's basically saying the same thing. I'm like, was there anything else going on? Like, was it? So I don't know. It just seems as if like everyone pretty much follows the wave. I could talk for like an hour about why this like so. It's the whole journalism is messed up. There's no other better way to explain it. Like Facebook really screwed up the way that journalists make money, and so as a result, only the stuff that is like peaking in the news is going to get traffic, and so it's very difficult to finesse your way around that, especially if you're talking about like people on staff at these magazines. This is like way too big of a I don't want to get anyone in trouble.
But no, your observation is correct. I'm not because
and it's like even the content. I mean, it could be, you could have 5 writers all witness the same show, but if you read, and that's just for me, if you read each of their posts, like they're almost like exactly the same.
Like I'm not saying circle and wrote it
it was like, wait a minute, like
what you got?
And I wouldn't.
I like how you said that. Let me.
I don't know if they would be considered plagiarism or whatever, but they're literally like saying the exact same thing.
And it is hard to write about performances, especially of new artists. And frankly, if a new artist hasn't been co-signed by like a star, you're going to get no traffic on it. So if you write that article, even if it is uniquely written and it's an interesting story, unless you can somehow work Drake into a headline, you might have trouble getting people to read. Like the story would have to be pretty crazy. Somebody would have to, set the stage on fire or something for like. There has to be. It's very difficult to get attention, and as a result, even if it was a good story and it's a good artist and it's a great showcase, and the guy writes a great piece on it, nobody might read. Like it may just end up being a stone dropped in a deep pond.
People don't read. People really care about the idiots on their Twitter feed critique on stuff. Oh, dude, whack. Yeah, I knew he whack. But then somebody say something like really like articulate. It's like, nah, we're not about to read that. Yeah.
Well,
so that's just the day and age that we in right now. Like
Kodak Black can have a following because at a certain point Drake like put the skirt record on his Instagram or whatever. And like there
shout
has to be
shout out
that.
to Drake, man. Drake be co-signing artists, be changing their lives.
He do.
But,
Even the big artists. Shit.
But the Drake cosign is powerful, but I haven't really, outside of, who has it worked for on his label though? That's the question.
I mean, the last co-sign was Bryson Tiller. He ooped Bryson Tiller.
Be saying on his
Not
label though.
Like what?
Oh, you talking about that somebody was?
Bryson
I mean,
Tiller?
no,
yeah, on his,
he gave
Magic
McConan.
Jordan.
He gave McConan that Tuesday look, and that
I mean, he gave Migos. He put that.
McConan is
those
on his.
are all like secondary co-signs, and then he signed McConan. So I guess you can give him that.
But there's definitely like this thirst right now for a Toronto rapper. Like people, I can feel it in the media. People are like, "Yo, there's got to be a Toronto rapper."
But I think the crazy thing about Drake, like as dope as he is, I don't know if he would ever let somebody out of Toronto really kind of like fly.
I said that.
It's the I call it the Nelly effect. You know what I'm saying? One of my first jobs in music, you know what I'm saying, was working with Nelly and some stuff he had going on. It was just kind of like, if you was coming out of St. Louis and you started kind of hitting this level, just like you either got a beef with Nelly or something would happen. You just hit this wall and it's just like it's over. So I don't know, but I mean the whole Tory Lanez. But there's a lot of people out of Toronto that's been popping and been doing their thing. But yeah, we just live in a day and age where like the cosign, you know, kind of like super means something. So I mean Drake co-signed one of my artists and that changed our lives. So I was just like, yo, salute to him. But I don't know. Sometimes I feel like some of these artists co-sign somebody because they want to take their ideas in a way, you know.
They're like, come to the
like
studio,
when I listen to
vibe with me.
Yeah, like so if I listen to like
right.
yeah, like if I listen to like
bro.
Travis Scott. I said that on Twitter and I got like ripped apart. I heard a Travis Scott record. I was like, man, this sounded just like Kanye 808 and Heartbreak. And he was like, you mean Kanye sounded like Travis Scott? You know Kanye stole it. I'm like, yo, 808 and Heartbreak came out like 5 years ago, probably even more, 6 years ago. And Travis Scott was in high school. Like, what are you talking about?
You trying to come with facts on the internet?
Yeah,
get,
man.
Get out of here.
Yeah, man.
You're just trying to come with an
Nobody trying to hear.
Nobody trying to hear that, bro.
Nobody trying to hear the truth, man.
But no, it's funny that you
Shout out
mentioned
Cardi B.
It's funny that you mentioned.
I like her record a lot.
Oh yeah, she got the Bad Weave or something record.
It's ratchet, but I like it though.
That's
That one?
Cardi B, super ratchet.
you know the love and hip hop.
He's not intrigued by it at all.
I'm not into that. I tried to listen to it though. I did. It's not my thing.
No, but what the Kevin Gates. Kevin Gates. I feel like a lot of people are kind of like downplaying or kind of like underplaying, like, well, in a sense, like Kevin Gates' success, and like he might have like this new blueprint, because he's still doing numbers. I think what this was past week.
112. Or his first week was 112.
Yeah, 112.
That was.
he did
Didn't he say something about how he outsold Anti? And didn't he say Anti?
Yeah, he did. I mean,
on Apple. On Apple specifically.
Yeah, technically he did, and then he just did another 30,000, I think, just this past week or something like that.
The second week was like 30K, I think, which means that's like what Bryson Tiller does every week.
Yeah, that's another.
Yeah.
So I guess this is a good segue into branding, because I remember that I think it was that same year. I remember Kevin Gates. He was on every South by. He was on the show, but what I noticed about Kevin Gates is he wanted to do more. He was like, how much time I got? Kind of do another song too? You know what I'm saying? He just wanted to do more, and then so you kind of see it paying off, and then you got Bryson Tiller on one aspect, right, where his branding is kind of like the mystique. Yeah. And then you got Kevin Gates, who's kind of like, you know everything about me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm cool with that. So, as an up and coming artist, how do you pick? Or do you let the people pick? Like, what's your brand, so to speak?
I think it starts with you, man. You gotta kind of be authentic and be real to yourself. Like, even if you allow the people to kind of drive you in a certain lane, it won't last long, because then ultimately you'll go back to, you won't be happy. Like, this isn't who you are. So I would definitely say it starts with you. I think that's why Kevin Gates actually does so well, because he's out there, you know, being him. He's like he's like that guy. I mean, he raps about it. I won't sit here and act as if I'm his biggest fan, you know, I won't, and I hope that doesn't offend anyone, but I have followed him. I've seen how he is. He kind of raps and walks and talks, you know, what he's about. So as an artist, I think it starts with just being real. I mean, if you work on the stuff, even if it's not moving the fans and the following, if you work on, you know, what you're doing, what's real to you, what you know, and you just get better at that. I mean, I think there is hope that you can find success off that. So I wouldn't, you know, I mean, and that's just with anything in life. I wouldn't do anything for anyone that didn't make myself happy first. So.
Okay.
He did there was a Billboard article recently about he spent like the last 4 years touring like constantly.
Yeah,
it's like what you were saying about like after South by Southwest, he didn't just do South by Southwest. He went to like, and he didn't just do like the South either. He went, you know, the Northwest and the Vegas and all these like other cities that a lot of rappers are ignoring. But also like one thing about I interviewed him once, and one of the things that he told me, I think people think about it kind of backwards. I was like, you know, do you ever get writer's block? I think that's an interesting question, also because I'm a writer and I do. But he was like, I don't believe in writer's block. He's like, my grandfather told me basically if it's not easy, it's not worth doing. And I think one of the things that his recording process, like he can be like real like that because it is basically just a nonstop stream for him. Bryson Tiller, I don't think would work the same way. He needs to be in a studio. Like the songwriting, I feel like is very key to why he's so big. Gates is able to just, I mean, how many records has he done in the past year? Like his album was 18 tracks alone, but he's been putting out mixtapes and a constant flow of songs.
Loose records.
Yeah, exactly.
Dropping controversial issues in his interviews and giving you writers, you know, so much to write about too. I'm sure it helps.
And lots of clicks, yeah.
You root for the kid. I mean, I remember I didn't know who he was, and he came here 2 years ago, 3. He came here like on like a little press run, and he was going to every sneaker store, and everybody's like, yo, come by the studio, meet this Kevin. I'm like, yo, who's Kevin Gates? They say, yo, he's from Louisiana. And I'm like, all right. And then he had kind of got into some trouble here. He got locked up, and I was just like, he was stuck here for like 3 weeks. I was like, yo, like, dude's still here, like, and I heard some music from him, and it didn't do anything for me. You know what I'm saying? But I was intrigued by him,
the person.
Yeah, as a person. So then later on, I started hearing more people talk about Kevin Gates, and then he did the whole I don't get tired, and that became everybody's mantra, like I don't get tired, I don't sleep. And so I think the best thing that was said was what Shannon said. It's about being authentic, and that's why I tell artists, like, you know, because it's like now, like, weird is cool. Like, the weirder you are, you cover your face, you do weird stuff, like people like it. Like, you know, at the end of the day, Bryson Tiller doing this to take care of his daughter. He's not with the, you know, he don't want to be out here popping bottles and wilding. Like, yeah, he's getting $30,000 to come to the club, but he doing that for his daughter. But you got people like Kevin Gates, who's like, yo, like, the good, the bad, the ugly of me, that's who I've been my whole career, and that's what people like. He said something about, they was like, you'll read a headline, oh, Kevin Gates had sex with his cousin. You clicking on it. Like, what is he talking about? Then he'd clarify it. Then it's like, oh,
it wasn't.
But then 2 days later, he drops a project. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, he understands his audience, and in the process, he creates marketing plans just off of just like shock value and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
And I can tell you that like the press did not chase him. He created like, I don't think